You're sitting in your car. The engine is off. You've arrived, but you're not moving yet. And in this brief gap between travel and arrival, something strange happens. The quiet feels wrong. Your hand reaches for the radio, for your phone, for anything. Because in that moment of nothing happening, no music, no voices, no task, there's an unease that rises from somewhere you can't quite name. A restlessness that says, something should be happening right now. Not boredom, not impatience. Something deeper. Maybe you've noticed this elsewhere too. In the morning, before the day begins. In the elevator between floors. In those accidental pauses when the Wi-Fi drops or the playlist ends. And suddenly there's just you, and the silence feels like it's asking something you don't want to answer. So, you fill it. Quickly. Music, messages, thoughts about tomorrow. Anything. Because the alternative, the simple emptiness of now, doesn't feel peaceful. It feels exposing. But what exactly is being exposed? This is the question most people never ask. We assume the discomfort comes from boredom, from having nothing to do. But watch more carefully. The silence doesn't feel boring. It feels threatening, like standing in an empty room where the walls have been removed, and suddenly you're aware of something you'd rather not see. Here's what's actually happening. The silence offers nothing. No task, no identity, no narrative. And the mind, so accustomed to being someone, to moving towards something, to commenting on everything, finds this absence unbearable. Not because the silence is dark or empty, but because it doesn't cooperate with the pattern of self that's been running your entire life. Alan Watts spent decades exploring this mechanism. He pointed to something most spiritual teachings obscure. The self, the ego, the me that feels so continuous and real isn't a thing at all. It's a pattern of attention, a habit, a continuous commentary that creates the feeling of being someone separate from this moment. Watts said it clearly, the ego is nothing other than the focal point of attention. Think about what this means. When there's activity, stimulus, something happening, the ego has something to organize itself around. It becomes the one who's listening, choosing, planning, reacting. But in silence, when there's nothing to comment on, nothing to manage, nowhere to go, the pattern has nothing to hold on to. And that's the threat, not the silence itself, the temporary absence of the one who claims to be in control. Watch how you move through your day. Notification, task, conversation, memory, plan. Your attention flows from one thing to the next. And in that continuous movement, you feel real, present, someone. But silence doesn't participate in this. Silence offers nothing. No future to prepare for, no past to process, no identity to maintain. Just this breath, this quiet, this absence of agenda. And the mind, trained to always be becoming something, finds this deeply disorienting, because in the silence, there's nowhere to go, no one to be. The familiar sense of self, that continuous commentary, begins to dissolve, not because something's wrong, because there's nothing for it to do. This is why we reach for our phones in waiting rooms, why we need background noise while cooking, why a power outage feels strangely unsettling even when we're safe. We're not seeking entertainment. We're maintaining the feeling of existing as someone. The silence threatens this continuity. Here's something you can observe right now in your own experience, not as practice, just as recognition. When genuine quiet appears, when there's suddenly nothing scheduled, nothing demanding attention, attention arises, subtle but unmistakable. The chest tightens slightly. The mind begins generating tasks, memories, plans, anything to fill the space. This isn't restlessness. This is the ego sensing its own fragility. The pattern recognizing that without activity, without objects of attention, it has nothing to organize itself around. And in that recognition, briefly, the sense of being a separate self flickers, not into void, not into nothingness. It just hesitates, and that hesitation feels like falling. But here's the strange thing. What if that falling is the only moment you've ever been awake? What if everything else, the constant movement, the endless commentary, the perpetual becoming, is the actual dream? Watts understood this paradox completely. He saw that we've been taught to think of life as a journey toward a destination, a problem to be solved, a future to prepare for. And this orientation creates an identity that exists in time, always becoming, never simply being. He said, we thought of life by analogy, with a journey, with a pilgrimage, which had a serious purpose at the end. But we missed the point the whole way along. It was a musical thing, and you were supposed to sing or to dance while the music was being played. The silence reveals this. It reveals that there's nowhere to go, nothing to become, no one to maintain. But the revelation only feels threatening because the entire structure of self is built on the opposite assumption. Look at the way we use language. I am thinking, I am feeling, I am experiencing. As if there's a separate, you having thoughts, feelings, experiences. But Watts pointed to something more fundamental. There's just thinking happening, feeling happening, experiencing happening. The I that claims to be doing these things is just another thought, another movement of the same pattern trying to observe itself. And silence, by offering nothing for this pattern to grasp, reveals its constructed nature, not through philosophy, through direct experience. When the silence appears and there's nothing to become, the sense of self doesn't know where to land. It searches for a task, a problem, a future moment, and finding nothing, it generates discomfort. Not because something's missing, because nothing is missing, and a self built on lack, on seeking, on always preparing for the next moment, cannot survive in the recognition of completeness. The silence offers nothing because nothing is needed. This is what the mind finds unbearable. You don't need to overcome this fear or embrace the silence. You can't, because the one who would overcome or embrace is itself part of the pattern that creates the fear. What happens instead is simpler. You see it. You see how the sense of self maintains itself through continuous movement, how it constructs identity from commentary, how it turns even spiritual practice into another form of becoming. And in seeing this, without trying to change it, something shifts. Not because you did something right, because the pattern, when fully seen, can't continue in the same way. It's like watching your own reflection in water. The moment you reach for it, it disappears. But when you simply observe, when there's no reaching, no grasping, the reflection remains perfectly clear. The silence is always here, beneath the noise, beneath the commentary, beneath the continuous story of becoming someone, not empty, not peaceful, not anything you could name or grasp or turn into another spiritual goal. Just presence, offering nothing, requiring nothing, and the fear you feel when you encounter it. That's not the silence threatening you. That's the recognition that you were never the one in control to begin with. The pattern was just running, commenting, creating the feeling of a separate self moving through time. And the silence, by offering nothing for this pattern to grasp, reveals what was here before the commentary began. Not a better self, not an enlightened self, not a peaceful self, just this moment, this breath, this absence of need. The music is playing. It always has been. The question isn't whether you'll learn to embrace the silence. The question is whether you'll keep preparing for a future moment instead of hearing what's already here. What if silence isn't something to be entered, but what remains when there's no need to escape? What if the peace you seek isn't a state you achieve, but what's revealed when the seeking dissolves? The silence is here. It's always been here, not waiting for you to be ready, not asking you to understand, just here, offering nothing, which is everything. If this touches something true in you, stay with us. We explore these spaces together, not to arrive somewhere else, but to see clearly what's already here. Until next time, let the silence be.